At its core, the bungalow is an affordable, modest home designed to deliver comfort and livability in a small footprint. Today on Homes Explained, we're looking at how this unassuming house form became one of the most influential in American history. We'll explore where it came from, how it spread across the US, the defining interior as well as exterior features, and why it still matters. The story of the bungalow begins in India, specifically in the South Asian region of Bengal, because the word bungalow comes from the Hindi word Bangla, which was first used by British sailors of the East India Company in the 18th century to describe the low one-storey homes used by officials and travellers during the colonial period. These homes were practical, simple structures with broad verandas that suited the hot climate. From there, the idea spread to Britain in the 19th century, where they were adapted into simple seaside cottages. But it was in the United States at the turn of the 20th century that the bungalow truly took off. Architects and magazines promoted this new architectural style as a whole new way of living, efficient, modest, and within reach of the growing middle class. And the timing was perfect. Cities were expanding and families wanted detached houses on smaller suburban lots. But what really fueled the spread of the bungalow was accessibility. Companies like Sears, Roebuck & Co. offered bungalow kits through mail order catalogues, and families could literally order their home, have it delivered by train, build it themselves for a fraction of the cost of what custom construction would be. And this made home ownership possible for millions. California embraced the bungalow more than anywhere else. The warm climate made the broad porches and indoor-outdoor living particularly appealing, and the state's rapid suburban growth created the perfect canvas. The so-called California bungalow became a defining feature of Los Angeles neighborhoods, with rows of modest homes built quickly and affordably. And from there, the bungalow spread nationwide. Chicago developed its own version built of brick to withstand the harsh winters. Other regions adapted the bungalow to local materials and tastes, but the core idea remained the same: a small, efficient home that ordinary families could afford. Now, at this point in the video, I usually dive into the defining exterior features, but I just want to make a note when it comes to the bungalow, because there's actually a lot of confusion regarding this. So the term bungalow refers to the core architectural kind of shape and style of the property. Now, bungalows often come with an awful lot of Craftsman ornamentation and decoration on top. It's kind of a layering on top. But for the purposes of this video and to avoid confusion, I'm going to strip all that off and just focus on what makes a bungalow a bungalow. So, number one, the most defining exterior feature of the bungalow is the shape and size. Bungalows are typically one story, emphasizing a compact and efficient use of space. Occasionally, dormer windows were added to the roofline to create a partial upper level, and that bungalow would be known as a 1.5 story. Compared to the tall, very ornate homes of the Victorian era, the bungalow offered a lower, broader silhouette and a much smaller footprint, designed to be efficient, affordable, and livable. Next up is the porch, because almost every bungalow includes a broad front porch, sometimes spanning the whole width of the front of the house, typically supported by sturdy columns, and they could have been square, round, or tapered. Interestingly, this traces back to the style's Indian origins, where these shaded outdoor spaces were called verandas. In America, they're called porches, and they became an extension of the living room, creating a welcoming connection to the street and the neighborhood. Exterior siding materials varied according to region, but wooden clapboard and shingles were the most common. Brick and stone were also used, especially in the Midwest, but ultimately local building traditions shaped the final look. Builders chose materials that were readily available and affordable, and this kept the cost low for working and middle-class families. And it also gave bungalows a wide variety of appearances across the country, but still retained the same modest, low-profile form. Another defining exterior feature of the bungalow, and certainly a differentiator from later house styles, is the placement of the garage, because early bungalows rarely had attached garages. Instead, they were detached and at the end of a long, narrow drive. And this kind of reflected how the car was just starting to enter everyday life and be reflected in the architectural styles of the homes being built at that time. Step inside and the bungalow's purpose becomes even clearer. The first interior defining feature is, of course, the compact floor plan. At the heart of every bungalow is efficiency, and the square footage would typically range from around 800 up to 1600, 2 or 3 bedrooms, a single bathroom with short hallways and very little wasted space in between. You had everything you needed and nothing you didn't. Next up was the placement of key interior rooms, because the living room always sat at the front of the house, flowing directly into the dining room behind it. Some homes use colonnades, bookcases, and partial walls to kind of define the rooms, giving a sense of openness while maintaining distinct spaces. This open arrangement was influenced by the Prairie and the Craftsman movements, which both emphasised flowing functional interiors over the compartmentalised rooms of the Victorian era. The third defining interior feature was the built-ins, and bungalows were famous for these. Bookcases flanking the fireplace, benches under windows, dining room sideboards, and even breakfast nooks were common. These features maximise storage and practicality, reinforcing the idea that a smaller home could still feel complete and livable. And much of the emphasis on the handcrafted built-ins again came from the Craftsman, which prized functional design and honest materials. The final interior defining feature is the natural woodwork, which gave the homes a sense of warmth and character without unnecessary ornamentation. This too reflected Craftsman ideals, where natural finishes and abundant light created very comfortable and livable spaces. From their beginnings in Bengal to their rise in the California suburbs, bungalows reshaped the way Americans thought about home ownership. More than any other architectural style of its era, it opened the door to home ownership for the middle class, and in many ways, it became the architectural expression of the American dream. That modest scale, though, has shaped how people view bungalows today. Some people see them as charming and efficient, others see them as too small and basic compared to other modern options available. For decades, they've carried a dual reputation, often considered the starter home for young buyers entering the market or the downsizing choice for older people looking for single-level living. Today, fewer bungalows are built, and part of this comes down to economics. Because they don't extend upwards, bungalows occupy more land, require more roofing, and typically offer smaller and fewer bedrooms. So for builders, it makes more financial sense to construct a 2-storey larger home on the same lot. And while this is understandable for their bottom line, it's also a real pity, as most communities are desperately short of smaller single-storey housing options. Still, the emphasis bungalows placed on efficiency, livability and adaptability has shaped generations of house plans, and historic examples remain a very familiar part of American neighbourhoods. Whether seen as starter homes, downsizing options or historic gems, bungalows continue to tell the story of how simple design can reshape entire communities. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the bungalow. Don't forget to share, like, subscribe. It really helps me out. And I'll see you here next week for more Homes Explained.